From the Ozark foothills of northeast Arkansas, I'm Carl Richardson, and this is Midnight Frequency Radio. Our guest this evening is Reverend Michael J.S. Carter. Good evening, Mr. Carter. I'll let you tell our listeners about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, Carl. My name is Reverend Michael Carter, and I live here in the southeastern part of the United States. I lived in New York City. I'm from Baltimore originally. I lived in New York City for almost 30 years working in the professional theater. And then I decided, I kind of always knew I would, but I wound up going to seminary. So I went back to school. I got my BA. I graduated with a BA in letters, cum laude, from the College of New Rochelle. I got my master's in divinity degree from Union Theological Seminary in New York City. Anyone can go to Amazon, and I have several books out on prayer and meditation and UFOs in the Bible, and I have a book of sermons. I'm a consultant on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, and I've done a lot of work for History Channel. I was on America's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. I was in the Steven Spielberg documentary Abduction Diaries, which was the precursor to Taken. And I've been on George Noory's Beyond Belief and Gaia Television. I serve a congregation here in the mountains of North Carolina, and I'm a father, a husband, and I'm also proud to be on the show tonight. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Excuse me. It's an honor to have you here. I understand in 1989 you had a visitation encounter.
Ah, yes. Yeah. How can I preface it? First of all, I grew up in I grew up in the Baptist tradition. And so sci-fi, I didn't watch Star Trek. None of that stuff was in my purview. So, I was a good Baptist, as were my parents. So I was not ready. Well, it took me a long time to get on the UFO bandwagon, if you will. And the reason why was because I didn't think it was in the Bible. What a difference a generation makes. But in 1989, I was coming back from a vacation in Mexico with my wife at the time, and we went to see the pyramids in Chichen Itza and Tulum, which was fascinating. And when we got back, I had been invited to a party. We got back to JFK. She went home. I decided to go to the party. I just wanted to kind of unwind, show off the tan a little bit, She was exhausted, as was I. So I went to visit a friend. No adult beverages were consumed. None were there. Lots of food, deviled eggs, which I love, the whole bit. December 28th, 1989. When I went home that night, I gave her a kiss on the cheek. She was asleep. And I changed my clothes and I got in bed and went to sleep. I don't remember what time of the morning it was, but what I do remember was I sensed a presence in the room, and at the foot of my bed was a 4 foot tall, no more than 4 feet tall, kind of whitish gray, gray being with the big head, with the big eyes, very spindly. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but she would not wake up, or she could not wake up when we later discussed it. And so I thought I was going to have a heart attack. The whole room was lit up like Times Square, and this person was surrounded in a white and blue light. So I pulled the covers up over my head and got in a fetal position.
So would I.
And after a while, I felt like I was outside. It felt like the room, the temperature changed. I was inside. It felt like I was outside. I was freezing. And I finally grew a pair, and I finally got the courage to pull the covers down. And when I did that, I was in my room. She woke up. We talked about it. I told her what I saw. I was so scared, and you know, they kept coming. They came like twice a month for about 8 months, close to a year. They kept coming, new and full moons. New and full moons, they would come, and they would paralyze me. So one time they showed me a past life. One time they showed me something that happened in the future. And I couldn't move, and I would feel like electricity going through my body, like all this energy. And I didn't talk to many people about it, obviously. I And then I started seeing different races. At one time, a reptilian came to visit me. Um, uh, Back in 2013, I had a healing from a Nordic individual. Um, I had a visit from a praying mantis being a few years back. So, they kept coming. And my life began to change, I must say, for the better. Now, was I afraid? Do I still have PTSD? Yes, I do. Not as bad as I used to have it. And so I'm not a big person that's into propulsion systems and back engineering. I'm not a tech person, even though I think that that's important. I'm more aligned with what happens to you spiritually. What happens to you when you look one of these beings in the eye? It's like if you have a near-death experience, or maybe you have some type of mystical, it doesn't always have to be something traumatic that you can't explain, and it changes you forever. And so that's what this phenomenon has done for me. And I started looking in the Bible, meeting other people. I said, if these people can come visit me in 1989, then they were probably here in 1989 BC, and probably even before then.
You mentioned that the initial experience led you to confront fears and
Yeah,
become more intuitive and compassionate. How did that process unfold?
these are great questions. Well, Carl, it took a while. I was already working on myself, and by that I mean I was in therapy for some family of origin issues. Um, I had slowed down all my partying and that kind of stuff. I was going into the ministry, so I was already on a path. I think they just expedited that path. But I was already working. I had a prayer life. I had a meditation life. I was reading and studying, and I was evolving. And then they came along. And so what happened was I found a few things happened. I think they're one of the reasons that I'm a healer now, because I do hands-on healing energy work. I started out as Reiki, and now it's something entirely different, I would suppose. Um, I started. Uh, I found it more easy. Well, physiologically, I didn't need a lot of sleep. I started getting by on less sleep. My skin, my hair, and nails grew extremely fast. I started glowing. People would come up to me, whether it was winter or summer or even fall. Have you been to the beach? Were you in the sun? My God, you're glowing. Um, so those were the physiological changes. I became much more intuitive. And I also found that my heart had softened. And by that I mean I felt like I was a little more compassionate. It was easier for me to say, "Hey, I'm scared," or "I love you," or I just felt more authentic. I also felt like I was more intelligent, and I can't explain that. Um, and so those were some of the things that happened. Now, again, for audience members, I was already working. It wasn't like a magic wand was waved. I was already, cultivating a spiritual life, an inner life, but they seem to have kind of expedited that. But again, it took a while. It took some years.
In your in your book, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Bible, it explores the intersection of religious text and extraterrestrial phenomenon. Could you discuss some of the key biblical passages of narratives that, in your interpretation, suggest the presence or influence of extraterrestrial beings?
Yes, I will tell you all of it does, and I'm not trying to be cute or, um, you know, uh, when you go to Genesis 6 and they're talking about the sons of God and the sons of taking daughters for the well, that's a little past Genesis 6. Well, when Genesis 6, when when the Lord and but in Hebrew it's the Elohim say, "Let us make man in our image." They're talking us, plural. It's not just one being. Some people have tried to say, well, it was the Trinity, but the Trinity didn't even exist then, especially in the Hebrew scriptures. The Trinity wasn't a concept that didn't come along till like the 300s around Constantine's time. And that was church dogma. But clearly, if you look at Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, the wheel that he's seeing, if you look at Elijah, who gets taken up in a flying chariot, these are clearly the most talked about. If you look at the book of Enoch, when he's talking about these beings, that he's writing for and he's living with, these are off-world intelligences. There's just no other way you can interpret them.
Given your background as an ordained interfaith minister, how do you integrate your experience and beliefs about UFOs and extraterrestrials into your spiritual teachings?
I don't. I don't. Let me put it like this. I almost lost my job once because of, no, they didn't hire me to teach them about extraterrestrials. And so I don't bring it up. I mean, I will bring it up if it's in the context of what my sermon topic is that day. But I don't just, it's not, how can I say, it's not a UFO church. And I know that's not what you're implying, but I really don't. I mean, it's an open secret. They've seen me do some of the TV shows, they've seen me on documentaries. They know that's my belief, but I don't force that on them because I don't want to split my church. Because you'll have some people who believe and some people who don't, and that's not what they hired me for. But I can tell you that for me, the Bible has many, 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 many lessons. It's not the only one. The Hindu scriptures, the Upanishads, the Vedas, because the beings are all in there. But for me, I know people who stop looking at the Bible for many, many reasons. But for me, the Bible is one of the most important books that we have in Western culture because our ancestors are telling us, and this is my opinion and my research, not forcing this on anybody, what it was like to share the planet with these beings. And if you look at it from that point of view, everywhere where you see the word angel in the Bible, which is angelos in Greek, right? If you look at it, nowhere in the Bible does it say these beings have wings. And I'm not trying to say that angels don't. I'm just saying nowhere in the Bible does it say they have wings. And the Hebrew word is malak or malakim for angels, but they're messengers. And the thing about being a messenger is, using the word angel tells you what their function is. They can be an emissary. They can be, they bring messages. They may be maybe some diplomatic work involved, but it doesn't tell you where they're from. Doesn't tell you where they're from. But yet, they are all through the scriptures. It is my contention that if you put the word ET or star person, I don't particularly like the word alien, but whatever you want, if you put that everywhere in the Bible that you see angel, it makes more sense.
I've been curious. I think the Bible was written for us here. Even if our Lord decided to create other planets, wouldn't he also create a Bible that dealt with them and not necessarily us? Do you think?
I don't know the answer to that. I won't even begin to tell you what this being would do. I can't even fathom that. What I'm trying to do is, as I answer your questions, because that's a faith question, and I'm not here to challenge the faith. I'm just here to tell you where the research has led me.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if he or she or it would do that, but what I do know is that that this universe, this multiverse that we live in, is teeming with life. And we can put God or whatever you want to call it in a box. And I think that what the extraterrestrial phenomenon does, it takes that box and gets rid of it. And we're not the highest on the food chain. There's civilizations older with more technology, some more peaceful, maybe some not. And so that's what I've gotten to through my experiences and through my research.
You've appeared on numerous television programs, including Ancient Indians and Steven Spielberg's I can't talk.
Abduction Diaries.
Abduction
Yes.
Diaries. How do you approach these public forums, and what message do you hope to convey to a broader audience about your experience and insights?
Well, I try. It's a great question. Obviously, I approach them with the utmost respect. I always come to the set prepared. You know, I've done my homework before I get there, or whatever it is they want me to expound upon. And what I would hope people would get is that you do not have to give up your faith tradition and to believe in UAPs and extraterrestrial life. You don't have to stop being, because I know some ministers and other people say, Michael, if what you're saying is true, I can't be a believer anymore. And I'm like, I don't know why. Our ancestors in the Bible believed, and they knew these beings exist. My God, they're talking about them. And that's number one. And number two is I want people to know, especially experiencers, that you're not alone. I counsel many experiencers, online and in person. And it can be a lonely journey. It can be scary because you really, even though, we just had hearings a few days ago, for instance, but it's still taboo to talk about this. There are many ministers and academics that I am in touch with who say, Michael, I agree with everything you say, but I can't say it because I'll lose my pension. I can't talk about it. I'll lose my job. And I understand that. See, I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, which is a very open denomination. Historically, we too are part of the Protestant Reformation, but we don't have a pope or diocese that people can tell us, you can do this, you can't do that. So I have a little more freedom. Now, I mentioned about 4 minutes ago that I almost lost my job. Yes, we do have a hierarchy. We do have a board of directors, and we do have that. One day, a woman from my church, who we didn't really get along much anyway, I don't think she liked me anyway. She said she got up one night at 2 or 3 in the morning, and she said, my pastor's on History Channel talking about little green men, and I'm not comfortable with that. And I tried to talk with her, and we met, and she just would not listen. And she said that she was not comfortable with that. And so she went to our board of directors. and she tried to have me fired.
Mm.
And much to my surprise, they took up for me. They said he doesn't preach this from the pulpit. He's not forcing this down our throats. And who knows? He may be right. Now, that was maybe 8 years ago, but they kept me.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
Harvard researchers' hypothesis about UAPs concealed in stealth on Earth and intelligent beings walking among us resonate with some of your own experience. What are your thoughts on this academic perspective? How does it align with or divulge from your personal understanding of these phenomena?
I was in a group. I still am. I just don't attend it. It's a group online, and they're ministers and clergy from different parts of the country, some even from across the pond. And they are all academics. I have a master's degree. I got my master's in divinity, but these folks are PhDs, and they've been, they've made the ivory tower their life. It was hard for me and for them to connect because they couldn't let it in. And I get it. They couldn't let it in their theology that there were beings who were more powerful, more technologically advanced than us. They could not let that in. They could only go up to a point. And I get it, because when we start talking about this, and when I say we, I'm maybe out the government, they have to talk about religion. And right now they don't want to talk about that. And I get it, because it's going to be messy. And so I say all that to say that there are some academics who are open to the idea, and there are some that it would just pull the rug out from under them. When you asked a couple questions in that statement, there are beings who walk the earth that you probably would not even know were not from here. When we look at the book of Acts, and is it Paul and Peter? It's Paul and Barnabas. Anyway, I think it's Acts 10, but I could be wrong. But, they do a healing, and the people bow down, and they have to tell them, no, stand up. We're not gods. We're flesh and blood men like you. Well, what does that tell you? That some of these beings they just look like us. And you hear that in the literature now, that some of these beings can shapeshift. Some of them are quite humanoid. Obviously, some of them may look more like the praying mantis or the reptilian or the gray, but there's so many races out there. So I think that sometimes the degrees can get in the way. Now, I'm also an experiencer, and I have been for probably a great deal of my life. And so I have that experience that they don't. They have maybe the academic PhDs or whatever, but sometimes that can keep you from being open to what is pretty much right there in front of you. I hope that answered some of your question.
How do you foster dialogue and healing in a divided congregation or community?
Well, I think the main thing is to listen. And I mean, listen with your whole body. Listening to maybe what's being said, what's not being said. And there's some training involved, but watching the person's body language, listening to maybe the timbre of the voice. But to be able to listen without thinking of what you're going to say next, And I would say, and this is right up there, that remember the other person's humanity. They're not liberal, they're not conservative, they're not this, that, or the other. You got to get past the labels and just try to see them for the human being that they are, that they are. Because the labels, once I see you, I remember my friends who fought in Vietnam and even in other wars, but I met vets who were in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they would say, oh, the Towelheads, or in Vietnam they were the Gooks, or and they did that because in order to kill another human being, you have to stop seeing them as another human being. You don't come out of your mother's womb ready to kill someone. I have to dehumanize you. Well, otherwise I can't survive in that environment. So I think being able to listen and not losing sight of the other person's humanity. That's the beginning.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to do sometimes, but that's the beginning.
Yes, sir. If extraterrestrials were confirmed to exist, how might they affect concepts like sin, salvation, and divine purpose be affected?
Yeah. Pardon me, I just drank some water down the wrong way. Okay. Do we have time for this one?
Oh, yes, sir.
I know it's the bottom of the hour.
I'll let you do your thought, and then we can do the break.
Okay. It's an excellent question. All of them have been, Carl. I feel that the religions, the philosophies, the religions that make room for other deities will have an easier time with disclosure than Christianity. Why is that? Well, Hinduism makes room for other deities. The god of this, the god of that, the goddess of that, the goddess of this. They have a main deity, the Brahman, but they have lesser gods and goddesses. Even Buddhism, which is not a religion, it's a philosophy, they make room for like Kuan Yin, the goddess of compassion, or, different deities. Native American spirituality doesn't have the hierarchy, and they've been talking about the star people for eons. The Aboriginal people of Australia, the Viking lores, they have all these gods and goddesses. The Greeks, obviously. Christianity has the problem. Even Catholicism, which I think is Christian. I know some people make a difference. I don't, but they have, saint this one, saint that one, saint this one, this, Christianity, mainline Protestant Christianity, they have God, they have the Holy Spirit, but they rest. Jesus is everything rests on Jesus dying for the sins of the world. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, suppose there are planets that don't need to be saved. Suppose there are planets that don't have that concept of sin, being born in sin, what have you. So, how would you explain that? Did Jesus save all these planets? Does he have to go to Venus, Mars, Neptune, Uranus? Does he have to go to all these planets and be crucified and risen all over again? Because Christians, Orthodox Christianity, rests their whole theology on the death and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. So they would have some explaining to do.
That's for sure. And I would definitely hope he didn't have to do that on each planet.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I don't want to be disrespectful. But if your whole theology rests on this one person who's supposed to save the whole world or the cosmos, and the way he did that was he died for our sins, Well, suppose you're on the Grays planet, they don't need that. Suppose on the Nordic Palladian planet, they don't need that. They don't. Then what? Do they need him as a savior? Does he have to go to all these places and be crucified again and again and again and rise from the dead in order to Christianity? It gets messy, and so that's one of the things they'll have to unpack, at least to rethink or explain.
Yes, sir.
Or all of the above.
All righty, sir. Well, we'll do the first break, and then we'll come back and continue.
All righty.
This is Dark Matter News. I'm Joshua Stark. Scientists have announced a breakthrough in harnessing radioactive waste to produce tritium, a key fuel for future nuclear fusion reactors. The development addresses two long-standing challenges at once: managing dangerous nuclear byproducts and creating a reliable supply of tritium, which is both rare and essential for fusion power. Tritium, a heavy form of hydrogen, has long been viewed as a critical ingredient for fusion, the same process that powers the sun, because it can release massive amounts of energy without the long-lasting radioactive waste of traditional nuclear fission. However, natural supplies are scarce, and past methods of producing it have been expensive and inefficient. In this new approach, scientists have found a way to repurpose certain isotopes from spent nuclear fuel, using them to generate tritium through controlled reactions. Not only could this make future fusion energy projects more feasible, but it also offers a path to reduce stockpiles of nuclear waste that would otherwise remain hazardous for thousands of years. Experts caution that more testing is needed before the method can be scaled up, but they may see it as a vital step towards making fusion a realistic and sustainable energy source. If successful, it could turn one of humanity's biggest energy and environment problems into a key part of the solution. Catch up with us at darkmatternews.com.
The Sea Crane CC Skywave SSB-2 is a Swiss Army knife of portable radios. The Skywave SSB-2 has wide and accurate band coverage in a small size, which makes it an excellent travel and emergency radio. Single sideband is a reliable way to get long-range information after an earthquake or a hurricane when normal communications are down. The SSB tuning is accurate to 10 Hz resolution. It also covers civilian aviation VHF with 10 aviation memories that can continuously scan for activities. It covers AM, FM, and weather with alert. To get your CC Skywave SSB-2, call 1-800-522-8863 or visit us at seacrane.com. That's CCRANE.com.
An Ohio man named Phil Ventura has built a massive 50,000-pound Stargate replica on his property in Ashland County. Constructed in 2010 with the help of his sons, the project used a plastic swimming pool as a mold, reinforced with steel rebar, and filled with 12 cubic yards of concrete. Heavy machinery, including an excavator, was needed to position and shape the enormous structure. Inspired by their love of the Stargate franchise, the family saw the project as both a tribute and a bonding experience. Although the giant Stargate has since gained attention online and sparked curiosity from fans, Ventura has made it clear that the structure sits on private land and will not be open to the public. For now, the concrete Stargate remains a hidden Ohio landmark, admired only through photos and word of mouth.
Welcome back to Midnight Frequency Radio and our guest, Reverend Michael Carter. Recent U.S. government hearings have brought UFOs into the mainstream discourse. As a faith leader, do you think religious institutions should engage more with this topic?
Yes, I really do. And I know, as I stated before, I get it. It's messy, it's embarrassing, it's daunting, but we have to talk about how it affects religion. Because it looks like, from my research, that our religions were started by our encounters with these beings. Because of their technology, because of the powerful people they were, our ancestors mistook some of these beings for gods. And so we need to be able to talk about this. And I think we're going to have to eventually. But it's a messy, scary conversation. And so now it looks like we're just going to be focusing on, at least for the time being, Tic Tacs, UAPs, underwater UFOs. That's right now what the powers that be are deeming is they're setting the narrative. One thing about what's going on, another thing that I'm watching is that the whistleblowers are all military. They're all military intelligence. And I think that's a good thing in some ways, but what it does is it lets them form the narrative. So people like you or me, maybe just everyday people who are having these experiences, we're not in the conversation.
How should theologians and scientists collaborate to explore the implications of UFOs and UAPs?
They're probably going to have to do a little bit of what we talked about before the break, not to forget the other's humanity. Einstein said you can't have science without religion. What was it? Science without religion is blind, and religion without science is lame. We're both trying to get to the same answers. Science can tell you why things happen. Religion can help us figure out how they happen. And so, and when we look at these some of these beings, when you look at some of the literature, some of these beings are deeply spiritual beings, and at the same time, they have this technology. So you can be scientific as well as have a deep spiritual life and be able to navigate your life. Some of these beings seem to have done that. A lot of them tell us, if you read Georgia, especially the older contactees from the 50s, the Georgia Damsky, it comes to mind. The Swits, Billy Meyer, controversial figures, but they talk about the merging of science and religion. They were warning us about what would happen if we kept doing what we were doing to the planet, if we couldn't get over our petty differences, around race and around religious beliefs. And here we are at the same juncture that we were being warned about. Some of these beings, if you read the literature, have said, we were like you guys were at one point. We were warlike. We were angry people. We were self-destructive, and we destroyed our planet. But yet they had the technology to become spacefaring people or to go to another planet. So if we don't want to end up that way, we need to change. And it's not just going to be from science. It's going to have to be a change in consciousness. It's going to be have a change in the way we look at things, the way we look at each other.
Some whistleblowers claim that the government has recovered non-human craft, including Bob Lazar himself.
Yeah.
If true, what ethical responsibilities would leaders, religious or political, have in disclosing this?
Well, in a perfect world, we would know it by now.
True.
But we don't live in a perfect world. And, what should be is one thing and what is another. So that's why we're having all of these, hearings. We're having people come forward and being persecuted. Some of them threatened physically, some of them threatened with financial ruin or worse. So whoever's in charge of all this has thrown ethics out the window.
Could the UFO phenomenon be a modern form of revelation, or do you think they're purely natural and technological?
I don't understand the first part. What do you mean about a modern form of revelation?
Something I came up with off the top of my head when I was making up questions.
I don't know what you mean by revelation, a modern revelation. So I'll try the second question. I don't know. I mean, if the best way I could answer that is there are civilizations more advanced. So obviously, their technology is more advanced. I don't think that's not natural. I just think it's technological. Maybe one day we'll get to that if we don't blow ourselves up. So as far as revelation, I'm not quite sure how you're using the word, but as we've known, they're not modern in the sense of they've been here probably before we were here.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're here to prevent us from blowing ourselves up.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. I think it could be some of them. Anyway, I'm trying to. It's interesting. We say we believe in God, but yet we've made gods out of them. So God's not going to help us do it. The extraterrestrials will help us do it. So that's interesting. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Yes, sir.
The other part to that is that I hope that happens, but I'm not putting my faith in that. But the other thing is this, we did this. When a child does something wrong, in order for you to get them to learn the lesson, what do? You have to let them learn the lessons from the mistakes they made. You can't always jump in to fix it because then they don't learn. The only thing they'll learn is that you'll come and save them. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But we've made the mess. So maybe on some level, we're going to be the ones that have to clean up the mess that we made.
If intelligent extraterrestrials exist, could they have their own relationship with the divine?
Well, again, yes, if you go back and read the stories of the old contactees from the 50s, some of them do acknowledge a God, but they don't use that word. If you go back and look at the Palladians and the Billy Meyer thing, they think our religions are primitive because we exclude people. and these people are wrong and we're right, and the whole mess. But they do believe in an energy, that's the best way I could use it, a consciousness that we all come from. And even Plato talked about that. So, but what they're saying is it's not an anthropomorphic being. It's not a man up in the sky. It's not a woman up in the sky. It doesn't have a body. It doesn't have, a heart and feelings. It's an energy source. It's a consciousness. It's not someone up in the sky pulling strings. So in that way, they have said that we are very primitive. We're like little kids around our belief around God.
Some link UFOs to ancient religions, texts, or myths. Do you think there's a legitimate connection?
Oh, no question. That's what we're talking about here. That's what Dr. Barry Downing talked about back in 1968 when he wrote UFOs, the Bible and Flying Saucers. It's what Morris K. Jessup wrote back in the 50s. He died under mysterious circumstances. There are a few clergy who are making that connection. Now, what that does do, then you have to say, then what is God? Who is God? Is God an extraterrestrial? Those are some of the questions that will come up. But yeah, there's definitely a connection. We had, what's his name? From the great state of Tennessee, Burkett. He's senator of Tennessee. Yeah. He came out a couple months ago, he was on YouTube, and he said that the Bible is, he said that Ezekiel, Wheel, and Elijah were UFOs. Now, here you have a senator coming out and saying that. Now, if he said that, he got permission from somebody to say that. He couldn't just come out and say that. But my point is that here you have some people coming out talking about the connection between religion, Western religion especially, and UAPs.
How might the discovery of extraterrestrial life influence humanity's sense or purpose in the universe?
I think it would influence it significantly. And one of those ways would be a threat to how we've been trained to think now. We would, instead of saying I'm a patriot, instead of saying I'm a citizen of the United States of America, or I'm an Italian, or I am a citizen of Australia or London, we would become citizens of the cosmos. And so we wouldn't emphasize the boundaries that separate us. By making that statement, we'd be recognizing our unity, that we are all children of the universe. And I think that is a noble cause, but I also think that other people would find it very threatening, people in power, because they stay in power by keeping us at each other's throats.
The aliens you encountered, were any of them reptilians?
Yes, I encountered reptilians twice. One came through the wall of my apartment, again, living with my first wife. She wasn't there. Tall as the ceiling, had a tail, very muscular, touched my arm, told me not to be afraid. Beautiful eyes looking back. And then I was scared the bejesus out of me. They were like cat's eyes. The pupils were vertical. And then at another juncture, I thought I was having a dream, but I realized it wasn't a dream because everything in the dream was the exact same. It was in our apartment. One of them knocked on the door. Someone knocked on the door. When I looked through the peephole, there were two reptilians at the door. They didn't come in. And then I woke up.
I've encountered different guests that I've had on that some think the reptilians don't necessarily have our best interest.
Yeah, I know. And that may not always be true. It's like people. There's some people that don't have your best interest. There's some do. And so at least that's been my experience. No harm came to me. except, I've never seen to see someone like that in the flesh is very unnerving. And again, it could be heart attack time. But you can't say that all reptilians are bad. Then you can say all Germans are bad. You can't say that all Palladians are good. Then you can say that all black people are good. You just can't make those kind of leaps. But people do that because we stereotype.
Yes, sir. Do you think some of the alien beings have been misinterpreted as demonic forces, or?
I think some have. I think especially in Western culture. I'll give you an example. In the Asian culture, the serpent, the dragon, is considered a positive being. Here, because of they link it with Satan and this, that, and the other, that all serpents are bad. That's not necessarily true. What is what is it? The caduceus on the medical, the insignia for doctors. They have that serpent around that. Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes, sir.
That's
Yeah.
that's a healing symbol. So each culture has a different view of the serpent. In the West, we've been taught that it's evil, but that's not. But if it's so evil, why is it a symbol of healing for our doctors and nurses?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different people, different interpretations with culture.
Yeah, there's a wonderful book called Flying Serpents and Dragons. It's by a guy named initial R, initial A, Boulay, Boulay. You can Google it on Amazon. It's worth a read. It tells you the history of these beings and how they affect us. And you'll see from the book that all of these beings are not out of the book of Genesis, trying to trick you up into going to hell.
How do you think society should prepare ethically and spiritually for potential contact and disclosure?
I think by just telling the truth.
The
Telling
truth
us
makes things simple, doesn't it?
It may not always, but at least it makes it right. And you know what? What did Mark Twain say? If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to remember anything.
Do you think the church should take a more active role in discussing UFOs and UAPs?
Oh, no question. No question. And hopefully we will. Again, right now, I'm one of few. And I'll keep talking about it. But yeah, eventually, I don't think they're ready yet. When I say they, I don't think the powers that be are ready yet. My God, they can't even tell us they exist. Now they're going to talk about religion. Boy, that's big stuff. And remember, religion has been used to control people. And
That's
once
true.
you give that up, then what happens?
What's the most compelling argument that you've heard for or against the existence of UFOs from a faith-based perspective?
Barry Downing's book, he wrote in 1968, The Bible and Flying Saucers. He makes a cogent, intelligent argument. Now, I don't agree with everything in the book, and he's a good friend of mine. But he was one of the first, if not the first that I know of, who really wrote about it. He was a retired Presbyterian minister. It's Dr. Barry Downing, and it's called The Bible and Flying Saucers. There are many renditions of it. It came out in 1968.
If you were to ask an extraterrestrial being one theological question, what would it be?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I don't know what I would ask. I guess I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. There would be so many things I would want to ask. I would probably say, tell me more about the God in me, because I was raised, like many people in the West, that God was outside of me. And that was always interesting, because Jesus said, God is in you. The kingdom of heaven is within you, the same. And so I would want to know more about that, because I've been told for so many, many, many years that everything is outside, that I'm separate. I'm separate. Now, I don't no longer believe that, but I kind of like to hear that discourse from a star person, how they would interpret that.
You've shared 10 spiritual lessons derived from your contact experience, emphasizing contacts like God as an energy consciousness, the importance of meditation, and the interconnectedness of all things. Could you elaborate on one of these lessons that you find particularly transforming?
Yeah, you know what? All of it, and I'll say this, Carl, again, and I guess I touched on it just a moment ago. We've been told that we've been separate from the source. And, you know, when you're young, you don't know any better, so you kind of believe that. But if Jesus says that he is with us, he is in us, and God is in us, and it doesn't have to be Christianity, it can be any of the world's religions, then you have to say, well, wait a minute, then somebody's telling a story. You know, and I thought about it like this. I'm a drop in the ocean. And this is not original. This has been used before. And let's say I go to the ocean and I put some of the ocean water in a glass. And I take the glass back up to my hotel room and I just set it there. Wouldn't it be stupid for the water in the glass to think that just because it was in the glass, it was separate from the ocean? It's part of the ocean. It's just in a glass. Well, that's the way I think, that there's a oneness. And if you want to talk about the definition of sin, because sin in Greek simply means missing the mark. It was an old archery term. It means when, you know, you make mistakes, we all fall short of the mark. But for me, if I was going to use the word sin, which I try not to use too much because it's so misunderstood, sin is, to me, is believing that you're separate from God. How can you be separate? How can you be separate from all that is? And so for me, it's this realizing the oneness, realizing that we all come from the same source and we all go to the same source. That's to me the most profound. And that we think because someone has thicker lips or their hair's a different color or their skin's a different color or they may do different, that we're separate from them, but we're not. And what we do to them, we do to ourselves. What we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. This is some of the messages from our extraterrestrial visitors. There's a law of oneness. And I think that is the key.
We're all part of the human race. That's there's no doubt about that.
Yes. Yes.
You've been described as a longtime UFO experiencer and have spoken at various UFO conferences and so on. What advice would you offer to individuals who may be having similar unexplained encounters or who are grappling with the implications of such experiences on their worldview?
I would, a couple of things. Great questions, by the way. I would encourage a support group if you can find one either online or if you could meet on Zoom. If you could find a one-on-one person, that'd be great. But just some people you can share with, people who won't judge you, people who won't say, boy, that's the sickest thing I ever heard. What are you, some kind of a nut? Those people are not the ones you want to be around. I would stress not having to explain yourself to someone. When you have to explain to them, like you got to convince them, yes, this happened to me. Can't you see? No, none of that. I would, and I do that. I have sessions with people. They're affordable. If someone wanted to go on my website or give me a call, we could do that. But if you don't want to do that, try to get in some type of support group. You can do it online. Sometimes Facebook has it, but you can find that, Google it. The other thing I would say is this, and it took me a long time. Remember that this is something that has happened to you, but it's not all of who you are. I'll share a story with you. When I first started having these experiences, I had a good friend, he's dead now. He was a very gifted psychic. He did not know he had this particular gift. He was a pure clairvoyant. He saw things that could happen in the future. And one day, he said, I'll give you a reading. And so he started giving me readings. And I went to his home, and I had never mentioned this to him, and that I was an experiencer. And when I got to his home, he said, Michael, you should ask me before you bring people to my house without asking. But he was kind of joking. He laughed. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, oh, yeah, you do. I said, no, I don't. He said, yeah, you do. And he told me, he said, let me tell you who's in here with us. They look like elves. They're small people, but they have a lot to do with goes on in outer space. Does that make sense to you? I still wouldn't tell him. But eventually I did before I left. And I mean, that's how talented he was. He saw these beings around me. His name was Gene Ashley, Michael Gene Ashley. And I met him when I was in the theater. He was an actor as well. So every couple months, I would say, Gene, can you give me a reading? And I was really excited because I wanted to know what the space people were going to say. But I knew he was getting annoyed. One day, I went and we did a meditation together. And he said, I got to tell you something. He said, how did Gene put it? He said, I can't control them. So far, they have messages for you when you come here, but they don't always, and I can't make them come. If they come, they come. But I want to tell you something, Michael. He said, there's so much more to you than this. There's so much more to you than this, than these space people. Now, I couldn't hear that then. I mean, it was the greatest, outside of the birth of my daughter, which would happen, much, much later in my life. This was like the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But now, as I'm knocking on the door of, I still got a couple years to go, but I'll be 70 in 2 years. And I get it. And it made me think, we don't like when people put us in boxes, but we put ourselves in boxes. And that's what I would tell other experiencers. I would say, look, for instance, me, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a minister, I'm an author. You know what I mean? I wear a lot of hats. I have other interests. I'm a much more interesting person because I can talk to you about other things besides UFOs. Obviously, this is what I'm here to do, but I'm just saying. And sometimes we can cut off the rest of our lives because that's the only thing we want to talk about. And it kind of makes us really one-dimensional. So that's what I would remind them. Get some help. Make sure you can talk to someone who's not going to judge you. Do that. A counselor, a minister, whoever. And to remember that this is something that has happened to you, but it doesn't define you. And I hope that was helpful.
Oh, yes, sir. As someone who encourages being emptied of your preconceived notions before being filled, what steps can individuals take to cultivate the openness and receptivity to new knowledge?
I would say spending quiet time, cultivating your inner life, prayer, meditation, being in nature, take your shoes off and walk on the grass, feel that interconnectedness, to be still, to get off the rat race, to stop looking at the phone the whole time, or to, just to get off the rat race, to have some quiet time with just yourself. There's an old saying, he or she who I would fill, I must first empty. And to sit still and be quiet and just to focus on your breath, to empty yourself. And then you can hear those inner voices your feelings, your anxieties, your joy. You'll be in touch with that. And that's what it means to be aware. That's what it means to be conscious. I'm aware that I'm aware. But if you're constantly on the phone, if you're constantly on the news, if you're constantly running and going and doing, and you're becoming a human doing and not a human being, it'll be really difficult for you to grow spiritually.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
We're after the top of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and play my second break, and then we can come back.
Sure. How long do we go to? I forgot.
I kind of do it randomly.
Okay, that's good. That's
all right.
good. All righty. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll be right back. This is about a 5-minute break, so if you need to refresh your water and stuff.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do, brother.
All righty, sir. We'll be back shortly.
Midnight at the Oasis, send your camel to bed, shadows painting our faces, traces of romance in our heads, heaven's holding a half moon.
This is Dark Matter News. Researchers at the University of Minnesota have announced a major advance in spinal cord injury research, successfully restoring walking in rats using an innovative combination of 3D printing and stem cell technology. The team designed a 3D printed scaffold filled with tiny channels and seeded it with neural progenitor cells derived from adult human stem cells. These cells are capable of maturing the neurons, and once implanted, they began to grow, extend fibers, and reconnect with the rat's existing spinal cord circuits. The experiment was carried out on rats with completely severed spinal cords, a condition that would normally lead to permanent paralysis. Over time, the scaffold acted as both a physical bridge and a directional guide, ensuring new nerve fibers grew in the right orientation. The structural support helped signals cross the previously blocked area, and remarkably, the rats regained the ability to walk. One of the biggest obstacles in treating spinal cord injuries has been the inability of nerve cells to regenerate naturally, coupled with the formation of scar tissue that prevents proper reconnection. This breakthrough tackles both problems at once by combining a supportive structure with cells capable of becoming functioning neurons. Although the results are highly promising, researchers caution that this is still an early step. What works in rodents will need extensive testing and refinement before it can be applied to humans. Still, the findings mark a turning point in regenerative medicine. That's it for Dark Matter News. Catch up with us on the Midnight Frequency Facebook page. From Memphis, Tennessee, I'm Joshua Stark.
The word amateur, it can mean a lack of skill, but today's amateur radio operators provide skilled emergency communications when the chips are down simply because they want to be of service to the community. Dependable, reliable, free of charge. Amateur radio emergency services operators are amateurs in the best sense of the word. Join us.
Hi, this is Jessica with C. Crane. Tired of spotty radio reception and static? C. Crane CC Wi-Fi 3 Internet Radio offers a crystal clear solution with audio guaranteed to outperform any smartphone speaker. With an internet connection, tune in to over 30,000 radio stations from around the world, all conveniently accessible without needing any apps, providing personal information, or additional monthly subscriptions. Enjoy complete privacy with no microphone or eavesdropping. The CC Wi-Fi 3 boasts a user-friendly interface with a full-sized remote for easy control. It also doubles as a Bluetooth speaker for your favorite music and podcasts. Ready to upgrade your listening experience? You can get the CC Wi-Fi 3 by calling C. Crane at 800-522-8863 or by visiting us online at ccrane.com. Once again, that's CCRANE.com.
Winding your way down on Baker Street, lighting your head and dead on your feet well enough.
Welcome back to Midnight Frequency Radio and our guest, Reverend Michael Carter. Are there any topics that you would like to bring up that we haven't already covered on the show?
Well, let me think. I mean, you've really, pardon me, put together some thoughtful questions, Carl, and I appreciate you taking the time to doing that. I think that we pretty much, we've covered a lot of topics. I would encourage people to, pardon me, to explore the Bible and look at it in different ways. My books would be helpful if people wanted to explore that. Alien Scriptures, whatever. I have several books, so you can always go to my website, which is at www.michaeljscarter.com. You could always go to Amazon, because the key is to go back and look at those stories, from a 21st century perspective, because then you will see that a lot of those stories that we were taught were God stories are not really God stories at all. They're stories of our interactions with the Elohim, with the Anunnaki. And so then you start to see a whole different layer that wasn't available to us, because we were taught not to look at the stories that way. And a lot of people leave church, and for many reasons, and sometimes you have to, because you have to follow your path. But a lot of people leave church because they're saying these stories don't make sense to me. And some of those stories have a lot of messages for the time that we live in now. And that's how you keep it interesting. But like I said, I know people who are angry with Christianity about the hypocrisy, and the other shortcomings. And we have to remember that religions are very human constructs, and human beings are not perfect. But for me, you throw out the baby with the bathwater, because when you read those stories, they are testimonies of what it was like to share this planet with these other beings, whom were mistaken as gods.
Well, I appreciate that thought. Also, if anyone wants to get links to your books on my website, nwdn.net, I have a link to your website and your Amazon page. So,
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And they can always, people can always call me. I'm sorry. Well, you can always reach me at michaeljscarter.com. I will respond. I will get back to you. I'm at church during the week and on Sundays, but in the evenings, you will hear back from me. So if you feel like reaching out that way, my website tells you what I do, my books, what I do as far as the healing goes, distant healing, hands-on healing. I'm here to talk, and you just have to reach out. But I guess what I would leave people with too is, don't keep your heart open. We're going to go through some rough times.
that's for sure.
Yeah, this is going to get a little crazy. And this is the time, whatever your faith is, this is when you need it. Not when things are going great, but when things get a little rocky, then you see where you stand. And so just keep your heart open, and don't let fear have the last word. You can't do it, because if you do, you'll wind up being part of the problem instead of part of the solution.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Do you have any current projects in the works?
You know, brother, I don't. I had shot an Ancient Aliens episode last December. And it was a different kind of episode because I was featured along with a couple other people to talk about our experiences, what I talked about with you earlier in the show. And then, you know, we had Hurricane Helene here. Well, no, that was after. We had they had the wildfires out there in California. And I figured, okay, maybe that was the holdup. So then I was told they were coming out in March. And now March has come and gone, and they still haven't done those episodes. And I get it. You know, I used to be in the theater, that show business. Sometimes it may not happen at all. But the last I checked with them in the summer, they said, Michael, we haven't forgotten about the episodes. They may come out in November. So I say all that to say that keep watching Ancient Aliens, and hopefully in December, the episode that we shot last December will happen. I'm thinking about a book, but I don't want to talk about it because I haven't done it yet. But I'm thinking about that, and that's all that's going on for right now. Just I got a little downtime, and I'm enjoying it.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it.
School just started back for my daughter, and we've only
Yeah.
been a few weeks going into it, and I'm already exhausted.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I get it. It's tough, and but at least you know it's the memories because you're there for her. She'll always remember that and have those good memories. But it will wear you out. Now my daughter is a little older. I'm assuming she's in college now.
Oh,
But,
yes.
you know, it's you know, paying for college, you know, and you know, she's out of state. So as a parent, you know, you're always worried about them and thinking about them. And at the same time, I'm watching her become a very beautiful and gifted and kind, you know, young woman. And so that's the gift. But yeah, when you're a parent, you know, on some level, you'll always be.
Yeah, she's 11. She started sixth grade this year, and
Yeah.
doing her homeschool type stuff with online courses that she does. I'm quickly discovering that I am not smarter than a sixth grader. So,
Oh, it's a different world. It's a different world now, you know, and you know, the things that these kids are up to and into, and I don't mean this to denigrate. No, I mean, you know, when my daughter has friends and she was visiting them during her off time at school, and she'd fly here or she'd rent a car and drive there. When I was 19 years old, I wasn't thinking about anything like that.
yeah,
I was now granted I'm a guy too, but you know, they're just so much more advanced. It's like they're wired differently.
yeah.
And you know, that's all, you know, but just enjoy that time with her.
Yeah, a lot of this new Common Core stuff, it seems to me that they're going around the world to get across the street. Used to, you did multiplication and division, everything straight up, contemporary way. And to me, some of the formats they're using to teach stuff nowadays is just, to me, it's more difficult. Block diagrams and stuff like that. It's wild.
It's different. You know, it's a different time. And you know what, Carl, you can tell when we're getting older because we sound like our parents. In my day, we did it this way, you know?
Yeah. I'm that person. I look in the mirror and say, "Oh my God, I'm my dad."
I become my parents. And yeah, I do get what you're saying too. At the same time, you know that you know there's a different way to do this, or there's a simpler way, That's always true. But you can tell you're getting older when you go, oh my God, when we start going back to when we were coming up. And and each generation has to go through the change.
Yes, sir. And I look forward to working with you on updates from time to time, like the congressional hearings on extraterrestrial. And
Yeah.
I think
Let's talk. We need to talk about that. And we don't have to talk about it now, but let's talk about it because I was thinking about it. I was talking about it with my wife. I don't know what day you would want to do it, because the weekends, obviously I try to spend some time with my family, and of course I'm in church on Sunday and during the week. So we would have to find a time because I do try to keep a work-life balance.
I understand. And
Yeah.
that's no problem. If need be, we can pre-record some stuff.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah.
That's what I told her. I said, you know what? He'll probably pre-record it. So so let's talk about it going forward.
All righty, sir. Well, like I say, it's been an honor having you on the show, and
this
I
has
really
been great,
appreciate
man.
it.
This has been great. Give Josh my regards, and we will be in touch.
All righty, sir. You have a good evening, and
Have a great weekend.
look forward to having you on in the future.
All right, brother. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.